30-story tower with my name etched in gold letters across the entrance. I couldn't help but smile as I watched my cousin Marcus frantically calling everyone in our family. 20 minutes ago, he'd been laughing at me, calling me a pathetic dreamer who couldn't even afford a decent car. Now he was stammering into his phone, trying to explain to my aunt why the building they'd just walked past belonged to the family failure they'd banned from tonight's reunion. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Aliyah Okafor, and 3 years ago, my family made it crystal clear that I wasn't welcome at our annual reunion. The reason? I was an embarrassment. A 32-year-old woman with no husband, no children, and what they called unrealistic fantasies about starting my own business. My mother's exact words were, "Aliyah, until you get your life together and stop chasing these ridiculous dreams, don't bother showing up. We're tired of making excuses for you." That conversation happened in my aunt's living room, surrounded by cousins who all seemed to have their lives perfectly mapped out. There was Marcus with his law degree and corner office, my cousin Denise, with her picture-perfect marriage and 3 kids, and my brother Jerome, who'd just been promoted to senior manager at the bank. Then there was me, holding a business plan that nobody wanted to hear about, wearing a dress I'd bought on clearance, trying to explain why I'd quit my stable job to pursue what they called another one of Aliyah's phases. The worst part wasn't even the ban itself. It was how they looked at me, like I was a child who refused to grow up, a disappointment who couldn't understand that dreams don't pay bills. My own mother wouldn't make eye contact with me as she nodded along with my aunt's harsh words. "Maybe this will finally give you the wake-up call you need," she said quietly. I left that house with tears streaming down my face, but also with something else burning in my chest: determination. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to prove myself to them and started proving something to myself. The business plan they'd all dismissed was for a tech company focused on creating affordable software solutions for small businesses in underserved communities. I'd spent 2 years researching, planning, and saving every penny from my old job to make it happen. While my family saw it as another impractical dream, I saw it as filling a real gap in the market. The first year was brutal. I worked 18-hour days from my tiny studio apartment, living on instant noodles and coffee, taking meetings on my laptop that was held together with duct tape. My family's voices echoed in my head during every setback, every rejected proposal, every investor who passed, every month I couldn't pay my full rent. There were nights I wondered if they were right, if I was just fooling myself. But then something shifted. A small nonprofit took a chance on my software, and their efficiency improved dramatically. Word spread. Another organization signed on, then another. Within 6 months, I had 12 clients and had to hire my first employee. By the end of year 2, we'd grown to a team of 15 and had caught the attention of some major investors. The day I signed the deal that would change everything, I was sitting in a conference room 50 floors above the city, surrounded by executives who were impressed by our growth and vision. The investment wasn't just money. It was validation that my ridiculous fantasy was actually a solution the world needed. That afternoon, I signed papers for $47 million in funding. But success wasn't just about the money. It was about the communities we were serving, the small businesses that could now compete with larger companies because they had access to the same quality software. It was about the jobs we'd created and the problems we were solving. Most importantly, it was about proving to myself that I'd been right to bet on my own vision. For 3 years, I stayed away from family gatherings. I sent polite birthday cards and holiday gifts, but I kept my distance, not out of anger, but because I was too busy building something meaningful to waste energy on people who couldn't see my worth. The reunion invitations still came, but I never responded. Until this year, when curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see if they'd changed, if success had somehow made me worthy of their approval again. The invitation was the same formal card it had always been, but this time, nobody had crossed out my name. So here I was, getting out of my Tesla in the parking lot of the community center where they held every reunion, watching my family members, pointing and whispering as they recognized me. Marcus was the first to approach, his confident swagger replaced by nervous energy. "Aaliyah? Oh my God, is that really you? You look different. Successful." He laughed awkwardly. "I wasn't sure you'd actually show up after, well, you know." I smiled politely. "Hello, Marcus. Yes, I decided it was time. Listen, about what happened before. We were just worried about you, you know? Family looks out for each other. But clearly you've figured things out. That's a nice car. Business must be going well." Before I could respond, my Aunt Cheryl appeared. Beside him, her eyes wide with what looked like a mixture of surprise and calculation. "Aaliyah, sweetie, we've missed you so much at these gatherings. Tell me, what are you doing now? Marcus mentioned you might be in business?" It was fascinating how quickly the tone had shifted. 3 years ago, these same people had treated my business aspirations like a joke. Now they were practically falling over themselves to find out what I'd accomplished. "I run a software company," I said simply. "Oh, how interesting. What kind of software?" Aunt Cheryl's voice had that forced enthusiasm people use when they're trying to sound supportive after the fact. "We develop affordable technology solutions for small businesses and nonprofits, particularly in underserved communities." Marcus nodded like he'd always believed in me. "That's fantastic, Aaliyah. Really innovative thinking. I actually know some people who might be interested in that kind of thing." The conversation continued like this for several more minutes, with various family members joining the circle, each one acting as if they'd always been my biggest supporter. Nobody mentioned the ban, the harsh words, or the years of radio silence. It was like they were all operating under some collective amnesia about how they'd treated me. But then my cousin Denise arrived, and she wasn't playing the same game. "Well, well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," she said, her voice dripping with the same condescension I remembered. "I have to admit, I'm surprised to see you here, Aaliyah. Last I heard you were still playing entrepreneur with that computer thing." The circle went quiet. This was the moment of truth. Would they stand by their new supportive act, or would they revert to the old patterns? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Actually, Denise, Aaliyah was just telling us about her software company. Sounds like it's doing really well." Denise laughed, the same cruel laugh I remembered from 3 years ago. "A software company? Come on, Aaliyah. We're family. You don't have to keep up the pretense here. What do you really do for work? Are you still doing those temp jobs?" The silence stretched between us. This was my moment. I could either explain myself, defend my success, try to prove my worth to people who had already made up their minds about me. Or I could do something else entirely. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo of the building we'd walked past on the way into the community center. "You mean this software company?" Denise squinted at the screen, her confidence faltering slightly. "What am I looking at?" "Our headquarters. We moved in last month. 40 floors, about 800 employees now. The photo showed the building in all its glory, with Okafor Solutions spelled out in elegant letters across the top floors. It was impossible to miss if you'd walked down that street, which everyone coming to the reunion would have done." Marcus grabbed my phone, his eyes widening as he recognized the building. "Wait, this is that building on 5th Street, the new one that everyone's been talking about. You're saying you own this?" "My company does, yes." The change in atmosphere was instantaneous. Suddenly, everyone was pulling out their phones. Some probably to Google my company, others to take pictures with me. The same people who had banned me from their gathering 3 years ago were now competing for my attention. But Denise wasn't ready to give up. Even if that's true, and I'm not saying it's not, but even if it is, success in business doesn't make up for everything else. You're still single, no children, no real family of your own. What's the point of all that money if you don't have anyone to share it with? It was a low blow, designed to hit exactly where she thought I'd still be vulnerable. And 3 years ago, it would have worked. 3 years ago, I would have felt ashamed, defensive, like I needed to justify my life choices to her. Instead, I smiled. You're right, Denise. I don't have a husband or children. But I do have a family. 800 employees who depend on me, thousands of small business owners whose lives are better because of what we've built, entire communities that have access to opportunities they never had before. That feels pretty meaningful to me. My family banned me from the reunion for being a failure. Then they saw my name on the building. That's not the same thing as real family, she insisted, but her voice had lost its edge. No, it's not the same thing, I agreed. It's a family. I chose, and that chose me back. A family that believed in me when it mattered most. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone understood exactly what I was referring to. The night they'd told me I wasn't worthy of their time or attention until I proved myself according to their standards. My mother appeared at the edge of the circle, having finally worked up, the courage to approach me. Her face was a mixture of pride and regret that made my chest tighten. Aaliyah, honey, I had no idea. I mean, we knew you were working on something, but this... She gestured helplessly toward my phone, which was still displaying the photo of the building. You knew exactly what I was working on, Mom. I tried to tell all of you multiple times. The truth of that statement settled over the group like a weight. They had known. They'd just chosen not to listen, not to believe, not to support. We made a mistake, my mother said quietly. I made a mistake. I was scared you were going to waste your life chasing something impossible, and I thought if we pushed you toward something more practical... You thought if you humiliated me enough, I'd give up on my dreams and settle for something that made you more comfortable. She nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. I was wrong. We were all wrong. This was the apology I'd imagined receiving countless times over the past 3 years. In my fantasies, it felt triumphant, vindicating, like the final piece of evidence that I'd been right all along. But standing there in that moment, looking at my mother's face, all I felt was tired. The thing is, Mom, you weren't wrong because my business succeeded. You were wrong because you gave up on me before I had a chance to succeed or fail on my own terms. Success was never guaranteed, but your support should have been. Marcus, who had been unusually quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. You know what? I just realized something. I walked right past that building an hour ago. I even commented to my wife about how impressive it looked. I had no idea. He trailed off, shaking his head. None of you had any idea because none of you bothered to stay in touch. For 3 years, you had no clue what I was doing with my life. And that wasn't because I was hiding it. It was because you made it clear you weren't interested. The reunion continued around us, but our little circle had become an island of uncomfortable truth in a sea of small talk and catching up. Other family members kept glancing over, clearly aware that something significant was happening but not sure whether to approach. Finally, Aunt Cheryl, who had started this whole mess 3 years ago, cleared her throat. Aaliyah, I think we owe you more than just an apology. We owe you an explanation. When you quit your job to start that business, it scared us. We've all seen people in our family chase dreams that didn't work out, and we thought we were protecting you from that kind of disappointment. By ensuring I'd be disappointed in my family instead, she winced. We handled it all wrong. We let our fear make us cruel, and there's no excuse for that. But we're your family. We love you, even when we're terrible at showing it. I looked around the circle at these people who shared my blood, my history, my childhood memories. They were flawed, judgmental, and they'd hurt me deeply. But they were also standing here now, trying to make amends, trying to understand where they'd gone wrong. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally. "But I need you to understand something. I didn't build my company to prove you wrong or to show you up. I built it because I believed in the work, because I saw a problem I could solve, because I was willing to risk everything for something I cared about. Your approval or disapproval was never the point." "Then why are you here?" Denise asked, and for the first time, her question wasn't meant as an attack. She seemed genuinely curious. I thought about it for a moment. Why was I here? It wasn't for their approval. I'd learned to live without that. It wasn't to show off my success. The building spoke for itself. It wasn't even for closure, really, because I'd already found peace with their rejection. I'm here because despite everything, you're still my family. And I wanted to see if we could figure out how to be family to each other again, on different terms this time. The conversation that followed wasn't easy, but it was honest in a way our family had never been before. We talked about fear, about dreams, about the pressure to conform, and the courage it takes to disappoint people you love in service of something you believe in. We talked about success and failure, about what really matters and what we'd all gotten wrong. By the end of the evening, nothing was completely resolved. Real healing takes time, and trust has to be rebuilt slowly. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was talking to my family, not performing for them or defending myself against them. As I was getting ready to leave, my mother pulled me aside. "I know I don't have the right to ask this, but would you consider coming to dinner next Sunday? Just a small family meal, nothing formal. I'd like to hear more about your work, about your life. I'd like to try to understand the daughter I apparently never really knew." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the woman who had rejected me 3 years ago, but the woman who had raised me, who had sacrificed for me, who had loved me imperfectly but genuinely for my entire life. "I'd like that, Mom, but I need you to understand that I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm not looking for your approval anymore, because I've learned to approve of myself. I'm not trying to prove anything to you, because I've already proven everything I need to prove. If we're going to rebuild our relationship, it has to be based on who I actually am, not who you think I should be." She nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I think I'm ready to meet that person." As I drove away from the reunion, past the building that bore my name and housed my dreams, I realized that this story wasn't really about proving my family wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could build a life worth living, with or without their support. The fact that they could see it now, that they wanted to be part of it again, was just a bonus. The real victory wasn't the $47 million or the 40-story building, or even the 800 employees who trusted me with their livelihoods. The real victory was that I'd learned to trust myself, to bet on my own vision, to build something meaningful even when the people I loved most couldn't see its value. 3 years ago, they banned me from their reunion for being a failure. Tonight, they invited me back because I was a success. But the truth is, I stopped being a failure the moment I decided their opinion of me mattered less than my opinion of myself. And that realization was worth more than any building could ever be. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.